Welcome back to the Writer's Workshop, where we give you the tools to unleash your creativity and flourish. I am Lady V.
I'm Alice Brown.
And today we are going over plotter versus pantser, and what if you're neither? So let's get started.
You know, I really don't like the name pantser because it just sounds not nice. Let's just go with that. But I got a couple other names we're going to go over in a little while.
Absolutely.
So start with plotter, Lady V.
Quite often you hear the phrase plotter. A plotter is somebody who goes through and plots out their book from usually beginning to end, very detailed scenes, chapters, however their writing process goes. But they know exactly what they're going to write and when they're going to write it. It's also quite often referred to as the architect of writing. You'll quite often will hear the difference between plotter and pantser, or architect versus gardener. Another thing for pantsers is also the term of discovery writer. Yes. Which we will get into that once we get to pantsers.
I like that a lot better.
I do too. So let's go over what the key traits of a plotter or architect are for writing. So for a plotter, they tend to go ahead and plot out everything. Their story beats, their chapters, their plot lines, their subplot lines. They know every detail that is going to go into their story, their book, before they ever sit down to actually start writing the book. And for some, this can be a bit of a daunting task, but for your natural born plotters, this is
organizers, people that are very, very organized and have to have everything structured.
This is actually a very comforting thing for them. And I can understand why, because you run into your areas where you stumble or have a little bit of a roadblock or a writer's block. You can always go back to your plotted out structure and remember where you were and where you were going. So that is a good point of plotting your book out ahead of time. Most of the time, the plotter knows the end of the story very early on, if not even before they write the first chapter. They know how their story is going to end very, very early. This is not the case with a plotter, or with a pantser, which we will go over. A plotter thrives on structure. As Alice said, this works very well for people who crave organization, who thrive in organization and need structure in all aspects of their life. With a plotter, they rarely get stuck on what happens next. Because they are already plotted out for their story and their structure, they know what beat comes next every time that they close out of their Word document and take a break.
Which I can see where it would make it easy. I think with plotters, you probably run into less blockages.
Yes, I would tend to think so with somebody who is very structured and detailed and has their outlining process already done. Very much so.
Now, I will say that there is no wrong way or right way of writing. Everybody is different. There has been some stuff that I have heard personally that, you have to be a plotter, you have to be a plotter. Not necessarily.
Or you have to be a pantser.
Yeah, you already have to be a pantser. There's many, Germany is one country. Germany writers do not believe in pantsers whatsoever.
No.
They are, but I think Germans as a whole are very structured.
Yes.
Whereas,
well, a lot of your other countries are.
Yeah, whereas America has always been
fly by the seat of your pants.
Yeah.
Which is why we created pantsers. Another benefit to being a plotter is drafting is efficient, which makes your revisions a lot easier and lighter. Because you already know the structure you're going for, you already know the story beats you're going for. So you're going to go ahead and write very smoothly to how you want the end draft to be, which makes your editing a lot easier.
A pantser, or a couple other words that I like better, explorer or discoverer, tends to let their characters decide the story as they go.
They don't know the end result of the story, the next beat of the story. They go by instinct and discovery.
The statement that I like is you follow the dragon and hope it knows where it's going.
At this point, if I would just follow the dragon.
Yeah, I mean, for us, and we write dragon series, sure, we, okay, you're in charge, tell me what's going to happen here. So Again, there is no wrong way or right way. Pantser tends to allow more creativity in their work because it's not so rigid that when, another character pops up and says, hey, I want to take a left turn here, most of the time the writer will allow it.
Yes.
And so you discover the story as you write it, which can be a lot of fun. However, it also means that your final draft is, once the story is written, I won't say the final draft, but once the story is written,
your editing process becomes a lot heavier.
Yes, because it's going to be messy, let's face it. Just because you're not structured and you've written the story as it goes, then your editing process is going to be a lot more work than if you plotted everything out from the beginning. I believe that if you are a discoverer or pantser, your characters are more alive and vivid.
Yes.
Because you are living in that story as you're writing it.
It's quite common that if you're, on the treadmill listening to your favorite music, that you're going to have a conversation between your two main characters pop up in your head, or even something from the side character come to life that you didn't even realize needed to be in the book.
Very true. So your strengths in being a explorer or discoverer are that you've got organic characters, you've got emotional authenticity, and you definitely have creative freedom. Now, for some, like Lady V and I, that means a lot to us. Lady V happens to be a little bit more of a plotter, I would say, than I am.
I do I prefer working with a form of an outline than just going with it. I do need a little bit of structure.
And
whereas
that's
definitely you thrive more on the just free flow.
But even so, what we do, I believe, is pretty much a combination of the two. And we're going to get into that in just a moment.
Because you probably have already searched here on YouTube trying to figure out what writing structure is best for you. Are you a plotter or are you a pantser? But then hearing these two, you're still going, I'm not 100% a plotter or a pantser. It's okay. There is a happy between, which is where we come in. Welcome to being a plantser, or I prefer to call it an alchemist.
This is where you take both the plotter and the pantser or the discoverer and you mix them together.
You find the best traits of both a plotter and a pantser that work best for you and blend them. How does this work? Let's go over that.
So I like to believe that it's you plant the seeds and then you negotiate with the forest.
With being both a plotter and a pantser, because I do not go by either one totally. I do thrive on a bit of a structure, but at the same time, I'm not one of those writers who I have to stick to that structure and that structure alone. I definitely, when I get into a book, that book sits and marinates in the back of my mind continuously, 24/7 until the day it is done. And I don't mean just done writing. I mean it's done, it's published, it's done. And those characters become a part of my subconscious almost. It's not that they become me themselves. They just become a part of my subconscious.
They're in the back of your mind constantly.
Yeah, and so just doing mundane, normal daily things, going for a walk, cleaning the house, they're in the back of my mind constantly. And so I'll just be, switching the laundry from the washer to the dryer, and then all of a sudden, side character Susie comes up and goes, I need to say this in the middle of this scene. I wasn't even planning that scene, but okay, you know what? That's a good scene, Susie. We're going to do that. So yes, I do have a structure, but something that we like to call these little interruptions is actually fillers, because it ends up, when we really get working on them, we're able to intertwine and mix them to where they just flow into the main beats that we already plotted out when we did do our structure.
Lady V and I quite often, in sitting down and writing a book, will sit down and be organized and
in the beginning
and plot the actual beginning of the book out. Quite often we don't plot out the end. We kind of leave that hanging open. And yes, there are breaks in between the scenes, but we go ahead and get those scenes plotted out and quite often go ahead and write out those scenes.
Our main scenes, our main structure beats.
From there, we become more discoverers because we sit back and we go, okay, we know where the story's going. We need some fill-ins, a couple other smaller scenes, and then we need the end. Let's let our characters tell us where they want to take this story.
I will say we usually don't plot out the actual end of the book, but we do kind of know where we want the character to end. We know how they're starting off, and we know where we want them to be, how we want them to have healed and be standing tall and proud and conquering their demons and their ghosts from the past. But we leave it open for how it's actually going to end.
Yeah, Sapphire. We plotted that final fight scene with the Raptorians.
Yes.
What was not in the original plotted out scene was Blaine losing an eye and getting injured. I believe we had Ivermanus getting injured.
We did have Ivermanus.
But not Blaine. He came in and, you know, in the middle of writing this, the character was like, you need to step this up a little bit more. You need to, this is what needs to happen. And we were like, okay, sure, we're going to go with it.
We're going to yank your eye out. Never said I was a compassionate writer.
No, we did not.
Not towards my characters. I'm not compassionate at all. I put them through some heavy shit.
So in being a middle down the road or a plancer, alchemist, you can balance structure with creativity. And that is the beautiful thing. So when somebody tells you the next time, oh, you have to be one or the other. No, you do not.
No, darling, you do not.
We do what works for you. And that's not to say that what you start with, you will end with. You may start off being a plotter and plot everything out, and that feels good to you for right now. And then later on, as you get writing and you start talking to your characters, you're like, wait a minute, I need to take a step back here and let them have more of a say-so in the story. And you may end up becoming like us, where we're on middle of the road.
I will say that I enjoy being a middle of the road. I like finding the balance between a structure and discovery, because I don't want to ever get to the point that I just tell my characters that you have to spit it all out right now and there's no deviating from that plan. To me, then they become very redundant and almost robotic. My characters would take on a robotic voice, and I do not like that at all.
No, neither do I.
Whereas if I let my characters, I have a basis for my outline of my story, but I leave the freedom for my characters to grow, their creativity can shine through it, and so can mine at that point.
As creative people, quite often, we don't like to follow strict rules. And I get that more than anybody, because I am a real stickler. When you say you have to do something, bet me. That's my first words. So having the freedom to combine the best of both worlds of a planner or a pantser is perfect, because we can take what works for us in both fields, combine them together, and come up with our own. And I challenge you to what works best for you.
And please, let us know what your thoughts are down in the comments. We'd love to hear them. Are you a plotter, a pantser, or a plancer? Let us know what your writing approach and structure is. We're curious to find out.
Yes, we are.
So that's going to do it for today. We thank you for joining us in the Writer's Workshop. And until next time, always remember, never stop learning and don't stop dreaming.